Be the same. So we'll get right into it and show you what's happening as we take you into potential tropical cyclone 16 out here, which is a couple hundred miles away from the coast. And we are expecting a landfall out of this, again, no matter what shape it takes, but likely as a tropical storm, or probably more likely a subtropical storm sometime tomorrow morning here in eastern North Carolina, close to the Outer Banks. So let's talk more about what's going on. This is the track for the center of the circulation. But when I show you the satellite, you'll see how all the weather is very far away from that center of circulation. So even if the center of circulation is up towards Norfolk on Sunday morning, the weather is going to be far removed from it here, all the way up into southeastern Pennsylvania, which honestly we're already seeing in the forecast here come later today. So let's look at, again, that satellite picture. It's still a potential tropical cyclone. And one thing you'll notice is that where we have that center of circulation highlighted, you don't see a lot of deep convection or bright colors on the satellite here. So the weather is spread out, which is something you more expect from a subtropical storm. You see a lot of the moisture coming in on the east side. That's going to be a feature of this from the whole lifespan of it. And the winds right now are estimated 50 miles per hour. We do have hurricane hunters expected to fly in there through the day today to get us more information on what's happening within the center of circulation and the whole storm itself. Now, what we want to tell you about a potential tropical cyclone, because I know it can be confusing, is that it's a disturbance that is not yet a tropical cyclone, but it has a high chance of formation, 80% actually, and poses the threat of tropical storm or hurricane conditions on land within 48 hours. So there had to be some kind of designation so that warnings could be up, and it allows for the issuance of those NHC advisories and the land-based watches and warnings, which is what we have in place. Hurricane Hunter flights today, there's one at 10:50, another one at 10:45. Both of these Air Force flights here, Hurricane Hunters. And so they'll be taken off. We'll get you more data about what's happening within the storm, more data for the Hurricane Center, too, which goes into the forecast. One thing they're really going to have to try to find out there today is where exactly is that center of circulation. So they'll be flying around this here to pinpoint exactly where it is. You know, we are looking at the moisture coming around from the east to the north side. Now, the radar is not necessarily picking up everything over the ocean, so know that there is rain out here. But what we're seeing coming on shore is this rain across eastern North Carolina, from the Outer Banks to the Lower Banks. We've got the rain even over towards Wilmington. Wilmington, we're gusting to about 26 miles per hour right now. Cape Hatteras gusting to 28. But look at the buoy just offshore, closer to where we're seeing the thunderstorms, gusting to nearly 50. So I think this is why we might be dealing with a subtropical storm, just because of how spread out the winds, the rain, et cetera, are from that center of circulation. Tropical storm warnings are up, even inland as well, and this includes Beaufort, North Carolina, up towards Duck, Norfolk, and Williamsburg under a tropical storm warning, and eastern shores of Maryland as well under that tropical storm warning. We're going to see this low pressure continue to strengthen, and that will drive up the wind speed. We don't expect rapid intensification out of this, but we will see some strengthening of it, and it may take on some tropical characteristics as we get into overnight tonight and tomorrow morning. So landfall comes tomorrow morning, somewhere here on the North Carolina coast. And right now it's moving at about 14 miles per hour. It'll probably slow down a little bit more, actually, and kind of meander across this area. And that adds up the rainfall concerns. We've got a 3 to 5 inch worth of rain here coming our way, eastern North Carolina into southeastern Virginia, and even spread out well beyond that, 1 to 2 inches all the way up into parts of the Northeast, including the tri-state area in New York City. Alex.
Rain. Jen?
Yeah, no, Mike, thank you. It's kind of a chillier rain, too, not your typical sort of warm tropical system out there. We'll be checking back in with Mike. He showed us the red flag concerns. We've got the storm surge watch that is up and some storm surge warnings. The watch right here that extends, Nags Head southward. We've got warnings kind of in between all of that in some of these sound side areas, which is where we may be dealing with some surge concerns and flooding. Same thing going up into the Chesapeake. And, you know, as Alex talked about, that might be some of the areas that see some of the bigger impacts here, even though it's not where we're going to see landfall. It's just the combination of the time of high tide and where we're going to get that onshore push of water, all of that coming in together to give us those concerns. Right now, things are looking fine. Checking out those flood gauges here. We don't have any real issues. There's a couple of spots. We're just past high tide. We've got a couple of spots that are running a little above, but less than a half foot or a half foot sort of maximum here in terms of how far we are above where you would expect to be at those tide gauges. Now, let's get farther north and then checking up here into the northern part of the Chesapeake. And we do have, again, about less than half, 0.4, 0.1. That's what we're dealing with right now in terms of difference from where you would expect to be with those tide levels. We'll have to keep an eye on it, though, into, I think, the high tide tomorrow afternoon. There's one overnight tonight and then one again tomorrow afternoon. That could be the concern. Looking at about 2 to 4 feet water inundation as a possibility. All these areas in yellow. And again, some of the sound side areas might be where you see the bigger issues. Just little perturbations in water can make a big difference out there. Mike showed us the big wide beach that they have at Atlantic Beach, for example. Now, we're going to be watching another concern in the waters, and that is the rip current risk. That is high. Now, judging from Mike's picture, and I don't think a lot of folks are going to think about doing any swimming, but maybe farther south you may, all the way down through Florida, the East Coast, we have a high risk of rip currents today, and we're not dealing with any weather coming in out of potential tropical cyclone 16. So heads up for you down there. The high surf advisory as well. Waves may be even larger than they are right now as we continue to see the system come on shore, and those waves could be up over 7 to maybe 10 feet in spots. We'll be watching that here, moving up along the coast of the mid-Atlantic through the weekend, Alex.
All right. Well, of course, with a sudden major coastal erosion, that is often one of the results of a tropical system.
But these storms aren't the only cause. Meteorologist Alex Wilson shows us the process.
Man, those images just like, my goodness.
In this very area that we're now dealing with potential tropical cyclone 16, has been known for that.
Yes, it has.
Yeah.
Hopefully we don't have to do anything like that, but no doubt we're going to be talking about some gusty winds as this thing moves its way into the mid-Atlantic. You can see, again, 50-mile-per-hour winds by Saturday evening as we head towards the Outer Banks of North Carolina. And then also maybe even tropical storm force there throughout the mid-Atlantic.
It kind of slows down. It becomes much less of a system, but it'll still be there bringing rain and low clouds and, affecting your outdoor plans this weekend. That's the biggest takeaway from this, is a lot of things are going to have to get moved inside.
Travel. Yeah, that's certainly going to be having some impacts. So let's take you through the next couple of days. The winds on the increase here for us by our Saturday morning. We could see wind gusts around Atlantic City, 40 to 50 miles per hour. Not going to be a morning to walk on the boardwalk.
No. Or you mentioned travel delays. So I think flights, these kind of winds can cause flight delays. They space out the aircraft more when you have low clouds and winds like this. So that's going to mean some flight delays here into the Northeast, at least for the first part of the day, and then maybe lifting up north as we get into Sunday, perhaps into Hartford and New York.
Yeah, we should start to see things improving from south to north as we head through the day on Sunday, moving into Monday as the system tries to get out of here, but it's not in the greatest hurry to try to move on.
It just kind of hangs out and, keeps the low clouds around, keeps the rain chances around. So even Sunday into Monday, there's still some chances for heavy rain up here, northeastern Pennsylvania, northern Jersey, and up into southeast New York as well. It's time now for what we're dealing with out here as we give you the very latest on potential tropical cyclone 16. Still a potential. It definitely doesn't have the look about it of a tropical storm, but it may be a subtropical storm soon.
Yeah, we'll see how this all tries to get its act together. But for now, we're going to be watching it moving northbound at about 14 miles per hour. So moving at a fairly decent pace here for us with 50-mile-per-hour winds associated with it. National Hurricane Center giving about an 80% chance to get to that subtropical or tropical status.
But they had to give us that potential tropical cyclone status for now because we needed to have the cone, we need to have the warnings in place here just because of time. We're running out of time. It will make landfall sometime early tomorrow morning, and then we'll see and watch that circulation moving north. But because the rain and the clouds and the wind is so spread out right now and will continue to be that way through the lifetime, we'll see that well outside of this cone.
Yeah, in fact, here's a look at the radar. There's kind of where the center of the circulation is, at least the thinking is right now. And you can see there's some wet weather already making its way into the eastern portions of North Carolina. We're only going to see that increase in nature in terms of some of the intensity of the rainfall and some of the winds.
Yeah, so winds right now, you can see gusting onshore about 20 to 25, maybe gusting close to 30 at Cape Hatteras. At some of the offshore buoys showing us some stronger winds. You would almost always expect that. We got the friction out there. You'll have some stronger winds at the buoys.
All right, so we do have the tropical storm warnings. They are in place anywhere you see the red shading. So eastern North Carolina, southeastern Virginia, up into Maryland, as well as a bit of Virginia in there too. Tropical storm conditions, they are anticipated activated in those zones.
We also have some storm surge watches and warnings. The bright pink is the storm surge warning. And it's not just the coastal areas that we're concerned about. It's actually more of these little inlets and the sound side. And that might be some of the bigger issues just because they can take less in terms of changes in water levels.
And we'll be seeing those changes, right? Particularly when we start talking about the tide cycle there. Really got to watch how some of the strongest push coincides with that high tide. But here we are watching things progressing northbound here for you. There's the low pressure itself, again, flinging back moisture and also seeing those winds on the increase.
Yeah. OK, so watching this now all the way through tomorrow morning, see how the wind field is so spread out. The circulation might be all the way down here making landfall, but you're going to have strong gusty winds all the way into the D.C. area, Philadelphia, South Jersey. This is all tomorrow morning. So it's a very spread out system.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, one of the spots that is anticipating to feel some of the impacts from this thing is in Atlantic Beach, North Carolina. That's where we find our very own Mike Seidel. And Mike, when you look at how things are faring right now, gray skies, you've seen some occasional rain showers out there. Are people getting into the waters? Is that even something that's possible? What color flag is flying?
Red flags are flying with good reason. We've got the...
It's not just your family that needs to get out of harm's way of a storm. It's your furry friends, too. But sometimes they get separated from our side. One organization is leading the way when it comes to rescuing animals from high water or hurricanes and reuniting them with their families. We got an exclusive look at their operation.
The day off and sit inside and just watch the Weather Channel.
I would. Well, because I'm also a big Weather Channel fan, too. But I'm a big fan of the beach. And even on a day like this here, you know, as long as you're not going in the water, it's still nice to look at through the window, enjoy the scenery. Maybe you're on vacation this week. Because September is still a time where people like to travel to the beach. So this is not going to be your time.
Yeah, the water's 82 degrees.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, the water's 82 degrees, so it's still warm.
Yes. Yeah. No. So when this all goes by, then you get some swimming in. Mike, thank you. We'll keep checking back in with you, though, in northeastern North Carolina, up into southeastern Virginia. That's where we have a pretty widespread 3 to 5 inches of rain. And the one thing that you probably have been noticing with our potential tropical cyclone 16 is just that a lot of the rain is on the north side, and it's also pretty far displaced from the center of circulation. So that's how we end up with all of this rain up here. Also, you see just how far inland we're going to get some rain. State College, Penn State's home this weekend. We've got rain coming in through tomorrow. It's going to be a tough weather day. We've got rain throughout the Northeast here, actually spreading in throughout the day tomorrow. Now, for now, the flood watches are confined to eastern North Carolina and southeastern Virginia. These go through tomorrow. Again, some of that rainfall could fall at some pretty heavy rates, and I think that would be our biggest flood concern when you get into rainfall rates at more than 1 inch or 2 per hour. And then we go up here with the coastal flood concerns, coastal flood warnings and coastal flood watches. This has to do with the time of high tide and when we get that onshore flow. So we'll be watching, I think, tomorrow especially for some of those high tide concerns up here, up the Chesapeake, in the Delaware Bay, even coastal areas of New Jersey and some of those little inlets, and always worried about back bay flooding too. Again, watching that wind direction, which is key. So flash flooding through this weekend. Through Saturday morning, Saturday into Sunday, and then again Sunday into Monday. You can see parts of the Northeast are still impacted with that concern of heavy rainfall. And we're going to be watching for a really tough weekend, Alex, too. Anything done outside, you know?
Yeah, exactly. This is just one of those where you just kind of say, "However, you know what? Take it as a loss. It's a lost weekend."
Yeah, or it's inside things, you know?
Exactly, and do the inside things. Absolutely, indeed. So, got the issues with the rain coming on through, but watch for some of the surge problems.
Back weekends here dealing with tropical storms, and we have extended coverage that you can trust so that you can prepare before the threats arrive in your neighborhood.
Now, our live reports are also available on the TWC streaming app, so make sure you check that out. Lots to track here for us over the next 36 to 48 hours or so, really heading through the weekend. We're going to be watching conditions deteriorate there, Carolinas, Mid-Atlantic, then eventually the Northeast.
This was named a potential tropical cyclone in our show yesterday, and so folks might actually have missed that this has happened. So we want to break down what's going on right now. What could happen to this potential tropical cyclone? Could it become Ophelia? That's a possibility.
Certainly a possibility.
Yes. All right. So first up, the reason it's a potential tropical cyclone is so that we could have products just like this available for you. The National Hurricane Center issued that yesterday, and now, of course, we have a cone of uncertainty. And so that gives us some sense of the timing and the uncertainty involved in where it's going to track. But it's all about the center of the circulation and its track. So showing us that making landfall sometime tomorrow morning here in the Outer Banks. And then we'll be watching it here lingering up through eastern North Carolina, southeastern Virginia, Saturday into Sunday. By Monday, moving up into northern Virginia or Delaware, maybe even South Jersey. But at this point, kind of changing character a bit. Now, let's look at where we are right now. It is a potential tropical cyclone, number 16. Winds are estimated at 50 miles per hour. So you probably think, well, that's enough wind to make it a tropical storm. Yes, but you see the look of it. It doesn't look like a tropical storm. So the hurricane hunters will be out. They'll give us more information on what's happening with where that center is, what the winds are out here specifically near the center, and the wind field itself, because you notice how broad just the whole cloud shield is. Well, that may mean that it's more subtropical than tropical, so kind of a hybrid system. It has an 80% chance of making it to that next level, whether it's tropical storm or subtropical storm. And the next name up is Ophelia. There's also Philippe, by the way, which, that's potential because we have another system we're watching out way in the Atlantic. Now, potential tropical cyclone. It's a disturbance that is not yet a tropical cyclone, but has a high chance of formation and poses the threat of tropical storm or hurricane conditions on land within 48 hours. So that's why we needed this to be issued so that those advisories and the warnings and the watches could be issued. And that's what's in place right now. Hurricane hunters are heading out. They're leaving shortly, actually. So one flight leaves at 10:50, another one at 10:45 tonight. And we'll have 2 aircraft flying in to give us more about what's happening, where the center is, what the whole wind field looks like with the system itself. We know it's big. You can see that on satellite, and estimating that you've got hundreds of miles away from the center of circulation of potentially tropical storm force conditions. And so we'll be watching that pushing on shore. As the rain already is today, the winds will be ramping up today. We already have some winds out there which have been gusty at times. Wilmington, North Carolina, your gusts have calmed down a little bit, but out of Cape Hatteras, we're still gusting at close to 30 miles per hour. And of course, the buoys, which are closer to the center of circulation and don't have any friction thanks to being over the water, those buoys are showing some of the gusts close to 50 miles per hour. Here are some of the wave heights out there. Near Cape Hatteras, look at this, 10-foot waves just off the shore of Wrightsville Beach. We've got 8-foot waves going down the coast. Even off the coast of South Carolina, we've got some 8-footers as well. And of course, out into the open ocean, 17-foot waves. And so we'll be watching for those bigger wave concerns too. Getting into the weekend is not a time to do some swimming. Tropical storm warnings are in place for those tropical storm force winds. We see that into the interior too, not just along the coast in eastern North Carolina and southeastern Virginia. So it's going to be a pretty broad wind field. We'll see that developing as we get through tonight and spreading out. I mean, not even onshore yet, but you look at how those strong winds are all the way up into Delaware and eastern Maryland here as we get through tonight. So again, this wind field is going to be quite large just because of the kind of system it is. And as we get into tomorrow morning, those gustier winds expanding up into southeastern Pennsylvania, into New York, into Long Island. You'll see some of those gusty winds. The rain as well will be on the move, and we could see anywhere from 1 to 2 inches of rain, pretty widespread, 3 to 5 in the areas down here from Virginia to North Carolina. And that's where we could see some flooding concerns, Alex.
Yeah, absolutely. The
concerns that we have out there, we do have some storm surge warnings as well as storm surge watches that are up along the coastal areas from eastern shores of Maryland all the way down into Virginia, up into the Chesapeake too. So it's not just on the coast thing here. It's really all these inlet waterways that we'll be worried about. And also the sound slide flooding could happen too into eastern North Carolina as we watch again that wind change direction tomorrow. So let's look at where we are right now. Again, just to give you some directions to what Mike was talking about. See how his wind kind of moves offshore at the moment. That was what was knocking back those waves. But it's actually more of an onshore flow up here in the Outer Banks. So that's why you have just a little bit of water rise compared to where you expect to be. Not a lot, nothing significant just yet. But it could grow to be more, especially as we get into the times of high tide tomorrow. That's what we're worried about here as well, up into the Chesapeake here. There's a little bit above average in terms of levels of the tide right now and water levels. But I think that could increase as the winds increase and we just get more time spent with that onshore push of water there on some of those western shores. Then we take you up here into the Delaware Bay. Worried about this as we get into tomorrow. Again, the Chesapeake, the northern part of it, a smidge above right now. There will be some higher amounts getting into tomorrow. And we are concerned about the storm surge because there is 3 to 5 feet at the maximum. This is worst case scenario. If we get the biggest push of water at the time of high tide, that's how we could get to 3 to 5 feet of storm surge, which would be impactful to some of those coastal locations here and inlet locations Carolinas too. All right, so the rip current's another thing, and you saw in Mike's shot, it's not a beach day for sure up there. I'm more worried about the rip current risk that we have down into South Carolina, Georgia, and Florida. This is still high there. We still have a storm in the ocean, and these are spots where the weather might clear out, and you might think about the swimming. Be aware that there is that high rip current risk. We also have a high surf advisory along a lot of the coastline of North Carolina. Some of the breakers could be up over 7-8 feet, maybe up to 10 feet. But watching that already with some of those bigger waves getting reported, and you'll see those waves increase going up along the Jersey Shore, getting into your Saturday, and up into Long Island, South Side Shore as well. By Sunday, those waves will start coming down. Alex?
Well, you know, with major coastal erosion, that is often one of the results of a tropical system.
But these storms aren't the only cause. Meteorologist Alex Wilson shows us the process. I mean, it's not a process that happens overnight, but rising sea levels contribute to it as well. Some of the houses on the Outer Banks, like in Rodanthe, that we've seen come crashing in, they weren't on the coast 10 years ago.
Exactly. That's the scary thing is, like, we bought it and it was fine. We had plenty of land, and then now the house is in the water. I mean, it's just wild. All right, well, let's talk about our potential tropical cyclone, because it is going to have an impact here coming up from the Carolinas and into the rest of the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast over the weekend.
Yeah. Okay. So we've got the rain and the wind. There's going to be a lot of impacts to outdoor plans, whether it's a wedding, whether it's a soccer game, whether it's a football game. We're going to be dealing with it starting today. The winds will be on the increase. The rain maybe not up here just yet, but by tomorrow you'll have it all. Yeah,
rain and wind. And that is just not a good combination for getting out and enjoying your time. 40 to 50 mile per hour wind gusts possible there, Atlantic City, late in the morning. I don't think there'll be too many people taking advantage of the boardwalk at that point.
I kind of can picture the kind of day it's going to be. It's going to be a stinging, driving rain with like small little drops. You know, they might not be terribly heavy, but it'll just be like against your face and not fun to be. Even running from the car to the shopping center. You know?
Exactly. Yeah, a day to be inside is going to be the key here for us, but improving as we start to move into our Monday there. But again, the rain that could come down could lead to some problems. Remember, we've seen such a wet summer in some of these areas. Additional rainfall, possibility for some flash flooding.
Yes. Okay. So let's look at some of the other issues with flooding. It's going to be on the coastal areas and not just along the Atlantic side. We're talking about some of the inlet areas, the bay locations. That's where we could see some bigger issues.
Yeah, these areas here, particularly when we start talking about the tide cycle, got to watch that very, very closely in terms of those water levels. Of course, we got some sport action that'll be taking place tomorrow in D.C. The Nationals and the Braves going at it. Well, they may not be going at it here. I'm just going to say baseball happening.
Yeah. What about football? There's a lot of games that are going to be impacted by out there for outside plans this weekend, whether it's Friday night football games, Saturday morning soccer games. We've got weddings. I mean, September is a busy month. The festivals.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah. And of course, all these things are very weather dependent. So there's going to be a lot of cancellations taking shape because of the windy, wet conditions that we are anticipating as our cyclone moves its way northbound here, heading our way through the weekend.
We're expecting a landfall of it sometime tomorrow morning, maybe midday, and then watching it kind of move fairly slowly, sticking around through the weekend, actually, up here through the Mid-Atlantic.
Yeah, it doesn't just zip on by, that is for sure. So here we are looking at the latest here for us. The center of the circulation here, kind of in this general area. We don't have a complete fix on this. I believe the hurricane hunters are going to be heading in there, and we'll get a better idea.
Yeah, okay, they just took off.
Perfect. So we'll have a better idea exactly where the center is as it's moving on off towards the north. But you can see a lot of the sort of the worst weather is well on off towards the north, already seeing some shower activity there in eastern North Carolina. And so we'll see that continue to, in terms of the weather conditions, go downhill.
Yesterday, Alex, when we got the visible satellite, we were looking at it, looking for that center circulation, and we saw it, but there wasn't a lot of deep convection with it. And the same thing today. So it's somewhere in here, but it's not tight.
Not at all. Not at all. So it's certainly not the most organized at all. And that's what you get with these systems here that start off in terms of being non-tropical in nature and then trying to make that transition. It's very, very messy. And that's what we've got here right now.
It's a really hard forecast. You know, it's not straightforward. You don't look at this and say tropical storm. Is it a subtropical storm? I think that's probably the biggest question, because there's not a lot of signs of it being tropical in nature. There was an old boundary in this area, which is part of the reason why, we've had some rain, although I think it's more the circulation that's taking over now for that.
Yeah, you see it's kind of working its way in from east to west here. Outer Banks not looking so great, and that's just going to continue to move downhill. Now, the heaviest of the rain certainly still offshore, and the strongest of the winds as well. Look at that buoy that's offshore, approaching 50-mile-per-hour wind gusts at this time.
The winds actually picked back up in Wilmington, now gusting to 31, and we're gusting to 25 at Cape Hatteras. That's the kind of day we're going to have. In and out of these wind gusts, 30, maybe 35 miles per hour through today, ramping up overnight tonight. Waves are about 9 to 10 feet here, close to shore.
Yeah, so they are certainly getting pretty choppy out there in those waters. The surfers taking advantage of this, but anyone's really got to be careful getting into the waters. We've got tropical storm warnings that are in place, so tropical storm conditions, something that is anticipated, expected, where you see the red shade showing up.
And that includes down in Atlantic Beach, where we find meteorologist Mike Seidel. And Mike, they call that area the Crystal Coast because that water can get quite clear, but not today.
No, not today. It's turned up, but it's not bathtub washing machine length like you see now up at the Outer Banks.
Tropical cyclone, the middle of the country. This is now another round of storms that we are going to be dealing with today. Watching right here back across western South Dakota, western Nebraska, into eastern Wyoming even. We could see thunderstorms out here. Just a lot of jet stream energy that we are working with here, and a pretty potent upper level low that's going to be coming in, and that'll provide that risk for severe weather. All modes possible: hail, damaging winds. There's an isolated tornado risk, not the biggest risk, but it's there. Thunderstorms that we've been watching from overnight are still ongoing now south of Kansas City. In Kansas City, we've got mainly rain across the area, but south of there is that line that we've just been keeping an eye on. But the real threat area today goes back up to where we've got that upper level energy right here spitting in. That's going to give us a big hail threat. We've got 2-inch size hail or greater. We've got a 3 on the Torcon across this area. So we may get some of those funnel clouds out there. That's a possibility. Tornadoes may spin down, something that we are watching out for. There's been a few showers already, but we'll see much more into the afternoon and into the evening. This is now 8 o'clock tonight. You see some thunderstorms out there, potentially around Rapid City, maybe about midnight tonight. Make sure you have a way to get some warnings that would wake you up and know where you would go if you need to seek safe shelter then overnight. Now, tomorrow, everything evolves a little further to the east. It looks like a spring forecast, doesn't it? We've got a large area of thunderstorm potential from Minnesota right back down to Oklahoma, parts of Missouri and Iowa and Kansas and Nebraska in that as well. Likely to be a line of thunderstorms, and along that, we could see all of the modes of severe weather. Minneapolis, you got risk of storms. Des Moines, chance of storms. Kansas City, we could see thunderstorms coming in later in the evening. That's about 8 o'clock or so, extending back down to Tulsa. So Tulsa, here you go. You are back in that risk of thunderstorms again. And we're not done yet. By Sunday, the front still lingers here into Texas, and we've got a pretty strong subtropical jet stream energy running across this area. So that means possible thunderstorms going severe in places like Dallas and Fort Worth. Not to mention the heavy rain concern that comes with all of this. Through Saturday morning, we've got an area from Montana into the Dakotas. Saturday into Sunday, we follow that line of storms, and with that, we could see some bigger rainfall rates, and then we bring it down Sunday morning into Monday for that chance of some big rain-making storms into Texas and Arkansas. Good for surfing. I'm surprised you're not seeing more people out there, more surfers anyway out there, except for the fact that it's really not that great of a weather day either, but they look nice for surfing for sure. Mike, I did have a question I wanted to ask you though about, are people preparing? Did you have a chance to go to the grocery store yet? I know you just got into town, but have they cleaned out water and all the things that, folks do preparing for a tropical system? Up and down the East Coast, where we do have some of this heavy rain concerns and the onshore flow, that regardless of what happens to our potential tropical cyclone, whether it's subtropical or tropical, it is going to bring us this rain, and it's going to bring us the onshore flow, leading to some coastal flood concerns, which may mean that you're just not going out for a couple of days because there could be some flooding on roads that you normally take, or you just might not want to go out in this weather. We've got a flood watch up in eastern North Carolina, including around Elizabeth City and back towards Greenville and New Bern. Morehead City, you're in that as well. We also have some coastal flood watches and warnings and advisories that are posted too. And it's not just on the coast. So it's along the bay, the Delaware Bay up here. That's where coastal flood advisory. It's actually a coastal flood warning for you from Dover down through Rehoboth Beach, where Chris Warren is going to be reporting from. We have the coastal flood watch here on that western side of the Chesapeake Bay, another area I'm concerned about. There's some warnings just at the south of there, because when you think about it, let me draw it this way, we're going to be having that onshore flow that continues to come in, so pushing that water against the western shores. Same thing's going to happen on the Delaware Bay and really on the Jersey Shore for that matter too. And it's just this persistent fetch of onshore flow that's going to be strong, which is going to be a factor there. Now, the rainfall is also going to be heavy at times, and the bigger rainfall rates could lead to some flash flooding. It's a likely risk down here in eastern North Carolina through Saturday morning. That's where some of the heaviest of rain and rainfall rates are. Continuing Saturday into Sunday, extending up here through parts of the mid-Atlantic, including Pennsylvania and southern New York. What about the surge? Let's look at that, Alex.
Yeah, that could be a problem. You mentioned that onshore flow, that push. That's going to be the issue here for us, leading to some of these storm surge values that could become a bit of a problem.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about what's going on.
That you can trust, so you can prepare before the threats arrive in your neighborhood.
Now, our live reports also available on the TWC streaming app, so make sure you check that out. We'll be giving you all the very latest on what's going on with this, what is still a potential tropical cyclone, which can be a bit confusing out there. But nonetheless, the National Hurricane Center needed to do that in order to issue their advisories on the system. It was just getting a bit too close to land.
Yeah, we should be getting a new advisory soon. The hurricane hunters are en route, and so we'll get new data from them coming in a few hours. They're coming out of Biloxi, but there's some new information coming out soon, and so we'll get some changes. I want to show you the latest of what we know right now. This potential tropical cyclone, which was needed to be called a potential tropical cyclone so we could get products just like this, which is a track forecast, the cone of uncertainty. It has it making landfall sometime early on Saturday morning, and then watching those impacts and the tracks spreading up through the mid-Atlantic coastline through the weekend. Really takes all weekend to do that. And it's because the shield of activity with it is so much larger than the circulation itself. There'll be a lot more rain outside of this area and really impacting people well outside of the zone as we get through the entire weekend as well. So here is that area that we're watching right now. The latest has it at 50 miles per hour, moving north at 12. Is this new advisory? I think. Yeah, this is it. Okay, the new advisory is in. Yes. The change right now, I guess, is just that it's 12, moving at 12 miles per hour instead of 14 miles per hour, which was last time. No change in strength, as you would imagine, since we really just have the buoys as measurement. The hurricane hunters will get in there to get some better data. The other difference is just positioning, of course, because it's been moving. So now it's 255 miles east of Charleston, South Carolina, and it still has an 80% chance of developing either into a tropical storm or subtropical storm. All right, the hurricane hunters I mentioned are en route. So one flight right now. There's another flight that's expected to take off tonight at 10:45, and that one too will give us more information about what's happening in this core of circulation right here. You can see it on the visible satellite. I mean, you can see there's a circulation for sure. There's a low pressure, but you know, when you look at just the whole perspective of what's going on, a lot of activity on the north side, some on the east side, a little bit out here trying to form on that west side, but nothing on the south. We do, probably think this is more likely to be subtropical than it is purely tropical, but we got the data. We got to know what's happening. Is it a warm core system? We got to know, and that data will come from the hurricane hunters. The impacts, though, will probably be the same regardless, and that means that the rain that we're seeing right now is only going to get worse because the system is pushing in closer to shore. Some of the heaviest of rain is now just offshore, but we've been getting some of that here, stretching from the outer banks down through the lower banks in North Carolina. Wilmington getting into some of the lighter rain. Winds here have picked up a little bit, now gusting to 35. That's an increase. Winds in Cape Hatteras gusting to 31, and the buoys about the same. One closest to that center of circulation gusting to nearly 50 miles per hour still. Wave heights have been coming up through the morning. We're now at 9 to 10 foot waves here right along the coast. We're looking at North Carolina, even South Carolina waves, 9 foot waves right there. And even down here just offshore of Georgia, 6 foot waves. That's pretty big, right? So all these concerns on the coastline. The tropical storm warnings are not just on the coast. They actually extend inland as well. Eastern North Carolina, southeastern Virginia, Williamsburg, Norfolk, Jamestown was looking at you. Ocean City, Maryland, we've got a tropical storm warning. Gusty winds will continue to pick up through the day today, really ramping up tonight. This wind field is going to be really spread out. We've got a low pressure, the pressure gradient associated with that, which will be right here, and the high pressure, which is out there, really sending and driving these winds right onshore. So where you have the onshore wind is where you have the water problems. So that's Jersey, Delaware Bay, especially watching the inland of the Chesapeake on the western side, especially because you'll have that onshore wind, and we'll do the same thing in North Carolina with some of the sound side concerns that we'll have and the inlet areas, again, with the onshore wind. Heavy rain a factor with 1 to 2 inches of rain, pretty widespread from Pennsylvania, Jersey, down through Virginia, and of course in North Carolina. And the 3 to 5 inches, you saw where that biggest batch of rain is out there over the ocean right there. It moves in. So we see that lifting up, getting into North Carolina, into eastern Virginia over the next several days, really adding up for you here to 3 to 5 inches of rainfall. So the latest on what we know right now with potential tropical cyclone 16 is that we have this low pressure off the southeastern coast. It should strengthen before reaching the coast of North Carolina. And tropical storm force winds, storm surge, heavy rain, high surf, all likely on the east coast here into the weekend. Plus, with this heavy rainfall, we could see some localized urban and small stream flooding from North Carolina to New Jersey. That'll continue to be a risk as we get into Sunday. Alex? Up about 7 to 9 so far. Now, the waves are one concern, the surge is another, and that becomes an issue when we look at the increase in the water level. Once the storm gets closer to making that landfall, and we see that real push of water at the time of high tide. Like Alex showed you with Yorktown, Virginia, it's at the time of high tide that we'll have our biggest problems. We're doing okay right now. Looking at Duck, North Carolina, your water's up about 0.2 above where you would expect it to be, so nothing significant at the moment. But you notice that we're getting that onshore flow, and it's the fact that we're going to be dealing with several high tide cycles with this onshore flow that I think is problematic for you there. We were hearing from Mike Seidel earlier down here on the Crystal Coast down there at Atlantic Beach, and there it's an offshore wind, so it's not a concern right now at all. Same thing for you at Wrightsville Beach. It's an offshore wind at the moment, and it's not going to be a concern when it comes to water rise yet until we see that water direction, the wind direction change around. Now let's look up here into the Delaware Bay and the Chesapeake Bay. There's a couple of spots running just a little above where you would expect to be right now, up towards Annapolis, 0.1. That's one spot that we're watching for the concern of flooding. Again, we've got 2 days of this onshore flow coming our way, just with the position of everything lining up with this low pressure. So that could lead to some concerns of water rise and inundation. We also have the rip current risk along the beaches. I'm not as concerned up here. I mean, it's a high risk. Don't go in the water, rip currents, but I don't think you want to go in the water up there. I'm more concerned down here along the Florida coast and the coastal areas of Georgia, maybe even around Hilton Head in South Carolina. This is where the weather is not going to be as bad. And so the water's warm. You might be thinking about it. Just beware that the rip current risk is high, and you want to make sure that if you are swimming, it's at a guarded beach, and always swimming with someone else and knowing how to swim before you get into the water. We have the rip current risk along with the high surf advisories here from the Nag's Head. Showed you that surf, but it's just as choppy out there. Cape Hatteras all the way down here through Cape Lookout. We're going to be watching those waves picking up through the day more than they are right now, and continuing to build up the seaboard as we get through Saturday into Sunday even. Still some higher waves up here, especially along the coastal areas of the Northeast, and then things finally settling down the coast as we get into Monday. Well, whether you are at the coast or live inland, storm surge is not something to take lightly. Hurricane expert Dr. Rick Knapp explains how storm surge happens.
Vulnerable stretches of roadways is Highway 12 in North Carolina's Outer Banks.
Meteorologist Chris Warren explains what happens when a tropical system brings impacts. Yeah, it's expensive. There's a lot of money that's spent.
And I mean, you don't even have to have like this major storms coming through. Just a sort of average storm coming through causes issues there on that highway. And over and over and over again, it just becomes, is it even sustainable?
I know, every winter storm. And this one, there'll be some overwash. I mean, we're already seeing today the onshore wind creating the higher surf out there. So we'll keep an eye on that. You look at this projected path, and it's interesting. It's all zoomed in here. And while it's not even over the Outer Banks, but we're going to feel some of the worst of the impacts out there.
Absolutely. I mean, if you want to talk about a true case of impacts outside of the cone, this is it. Yeah. Because, even though you're not in it, some of the worst weather you can anticipate there in the Outer Banks.
Yeah, same thing in Ocean City and in New Jersey and New York. We're all going to feel impacts from this because it is a large system already, and the impacts are well away from the center of circulation. So let's focus in on the winds. By later today, winds picking up maybe 20, 25 or close to 30 miles per hour and increasing overnight.
Absolutely. Heading into the day on our Saturday, look at Philly. I mean, 35 to 40 mile per hour wind gusts will be a possibility there right in the heart of that sort of that afternoon. So you had plans to get out and enjoy your day? Maybe there's the soccer for the kids, any other football games that may be going on.
Yeah.
It is not going to be a good Saturday for that.
Nope. The weddings, you haven't guessed I'm going to a wedding. You're not going to be having that outside. Even into Sunday, it's still windy. Monday, look at this, still 15 to 20 power winds. That's not necessarily that impactful per se, not causing power outages, but it's still something that's going to be just affect. You'll feel it when you go outside.
Absolutely. And with the rain that we see coming down, watch out. Could add up here. This is Sunday into Monday, at least the possibility for some flash flooding.
You mentioned football. 16. We've been watching a lot of rain actually already moving onshore in eastern North Carolina. This is the center of circulation. A lot of the activity associated with it is north of the system. Some extent to the east, a little bit to the west, but we'll talk details about this. Winds now estimated at 50 miles per hour as they were in the last advisory. That's a combination of data from buoys surrounding this center, as well as a NOAA sail drone that went in here and caught winds that were about the same as well. So that's a really good estimate on the winds at 50, but the hurricane hunters are en route, and we'll get more data on that. It's moving north at 12. I think what we really need to know in order to make this something other than a potential tropical cyclone, because the winds are there, but is it warm core? Is it still a hybrid system with a front? And that's data that the hurricane hunters will bring us as they fly through later today. They're en route. They left Biloxi. Now, the projected path, the change in this here as we look at this coming in from the last forecast is that it may increase in intensity just before landfall to 65 miles per hour. And it is expected to become a tropical storm before landfall. It's sitting right over very warm Gulf Stream waters. So that potential is certainly there. Either way, the impacts are not going to be changed, whether it's tropical or subtropical. We'll see winds increase right before landfall, and then interaction with land as well as dry air will mean that we have a weakening system as it moves north, but still a rain-making system. So we will see that as part of our forecast. And the wind moving onshore, and I think just the fetch of it and the duration of it is going to bring some problems. We already have that. Winds are continuing to move around the center of circulation just like this, pushing in the rain. We see that happening. And it's not been the heaviest of rain onshore right now. That's mainly offshore, but that potential is there to kind of pivot that right in, which is one of the concerns for the bigger rainfall rates in just the next couple of hours. So right now the winds now gusting to nearly 50 at the buoy. Wilmington in North Carolina, we are gusting to 35, and Cape Hatteras gusting to 31. That's why we've got tropical storm warnings up. We're going to see these tropical storm force gusts at least throughout the day today into tomorrow, that it goes all the way up into Williamsburg and all the way on the western side of the Chesapeake Bay here. We're expecting tropical storm force winds and the concern of surge, Alex.
Yeah, absolutely. How about we
to more on what's happening with our potential tropical cyclone 16, but we also have thunderstorms and possible severe weather across. Now, you kind of get a sense. I mean, look, we have some rain out there and storms from overnight still ongoing. Kansas City is southward. It's not severe. This is not severe either, but we do have some rain and a couple of thunders and lightning strikes embedded within that around Rapid City. But that's where the upper level energy is. So we'll get to that. This is just now continuing to be on the move into Independence. Look at all this lightning coming out of that down here into southeastern Kansas. Kansas City, it's just a few lightning strikes around, but the rain has been stuck with us all morning long. It's been a terrible commute in Kansas City. We go up to Rapid City, and then we've got rain and a few thunderstorms, as you can see, down from there into Hot Springs, South Dakota, actually extending into Nebraska, almost to Scotts Bluff, but not quite. There'll be more where that came from here today. That's the zone that could see perhaps some large hail, 2-inch size or greater. That could do significant damage. We also have a threat for tornadoes in this area. There's a 3 on our Torcon in this zone. Now, for today, we do have those showers and storms right now. And once we get through the afternoon, I think that's when we get a better chance of getting those storms with the bigger hail potential, perhaps looking at a few isolated tornadoes. That all is ongoing into tonight, 9 o'clock even, 10 o'clock, Rapid City, midnight. That's when you might see some of your worst storms coming through. So we're watching all of the risks there, and then it all evolves east as the energy swings a little bit further to the east tomorrow. Now stretching from Minnesota right back down into Oklahoma, the chance for storms here going severe with all modes of severe weather. Wind the most likely threat. We think it'll be a line of storms stretching all the way from Minneapolis to Tulsa. This is for you tomorrow afternoon and into about 5 o'clock or so. But you see how it kind of back builds along the line, and we get multiple chances of thunderstorms in some of the same places. Minneapolis, that also includes you. Des Moines, we will see it. Down through Kansas City, a couple of storm chances. And Tulsa, boy, we started the clock at, 5 p.m. here on Saturday night, and you're still in thunderstorms and lingering into the overnight hours. And we're going to watch that threat for storms actually continue into Sunday. Extending down, our front is not quite through all the way into Dallas and Waco. Plus, we have some jet stream energy with the subtropical branch of the jet stream right over that area. So we've got that chance of storms there. But pointing out that it's not just about the hail or the wind or that isolated tornado risk. Heavy rain is a possibility. And we'll see that through Saturday morning from Montana into South Dakota. Saturday into Sunday, extending down. And I want to highlight that area around Tulsa just because we're really watching some rain potential there, because that continues from Sunday into Monday. So got to watch out for some flash flooding concerns with all of that. Now let's go back to the coast and find out what's happening with our potential tropical cyclone.
Yeah, that's
already begun. I want to take you into that forecast. North Carolina, actually where we're already in the rain right now, you're not going to get the biggest totals. Those are expected up here into northeastern North Carolina, eastern Virginia. I'm watching even Richmond, Norfolk, Virginia Beach, Hampton Roads area. We'll see that rain and rain heavy at times too, nosing all the way up here into along the Chesapeake and just in the D.C. area and points northward, northern Virginia. Even maybe as back as far west as Leesburg could see some heavy rain here, but I think certainly up around Annapolis, you guys are in it for some heavy rain concerns. At the moment, the flood watches are up for eastern Virginia, southeastern Virginia, including around Virginia Beach. We also have some flood watches in eastern North Carolina, Greenville, New Bern, Morehead City, out towards the Outer Banks. All concerns here with that heavy rain coming in, and mainly that it could come down at a pretty fast rate. That's what always drives the flash flood concerns in a situation like this. Now, for us with the coastal flood watches and advisories and warnings, this is more around the time of high tide that we'll be watching for those concerns. And the coastal flood warning, I'll tell you, it's right here because we're going to have persistent flow over the Atlantic and the Delaware Bay. Over the Atlantic here in New Jersey, we'll be getting those coastal flood concerns. And then over here into the Chesapeake. And that's why we do have the coastal flood warnings up. Other spots are watches, other spots are advisories as well. Through Saturday morning, areas of flooding eastern North Carolina, and it's likely that we'll see some flash flooding there, including around Morehead City. Got to keep an eye on it. Atlantic Beach, another spot to watch. And then we get to Saturday morning into Sunday morning. This zone now expands up into northern Virginia, into Maryland, into parts of all of Delaware, parts of Jersey, and southeastern Pennsylvania. We could see some possible flash flooding because of heavy rain. And then Sunday to Monday, we're still keeping it going with some rain chances extending from northeastern Pennsylvania into just north of the New York City area. So it looks like this in the high-resolution future radar. Coming onshore sometime early tomorrow. There'll be some strengthening before it moves onshore, and then we see the rain spreading up along the coast. And you see by Sunday into Monday morning, we're still dealing with rain here into southern New England, and that includes up into Massachusetts. You'll be dealing with some rain even maybe into southeastern, down East Maine, including around Portland. But we're clearing out everyone else at that point. Now, we better look at the surf, though, and the surge, because these are all concerns we have with this.
Absolutely, indeed. Now, not a powerful system, but you don't need a powerful system to deal with problems when it comes to coastal issues. So, let's talk a bit more about.
You can prepare before the threats arrive to your neighborhood.
Our live reports are also available on the TWC streaming app, so make sure you check that out. We'll have plenty of updates here on what's going on with this potential tropical cyclone. If it gets upgraded to a subtropical storm or a tropical storm, we'll have all those updates there on the TWC streaming app.
Our weather producer Jensen was just putting the visible satellite. She had it in my computer system, so I was like sneaking a peek at. You can really see a couple of different spots where the circulation might be, and one in particular. So this is what we need the hurricane hunters for. We need to know exactly where that center circulation is, how strong is it, what's the pressure. They will go in and do that.
Yeah, so key information. They are headed there. In fact, they left out of Biloxi maybe an hour or so ago.
Yes.
So we should be getting more information from them soon.
Yeah, well, you're exactly right, Alex. Let's go ahead and take a look at what's out there today in terms of, the potential tropical cyclone, which it is still a potential tropical cyclone. It may become subtropical storm Ophelia or tropical storm Ophelia. It's still over the water, and it's over really warm water temperatures. In fact, water temperatures in the 80s here where it is, Gulf Stream right underneath it. So that's going to be a factor in allowing for some development. Time is really the thing to watch out for, because we only have till tomorrow morning. morning, and that's when it starts to move onshore, and then that will remove its source of potential energy to become tropical. The warm water is what feeds tropical systems. Now, at the moment, you see that we've got all of the energy and all of the activity on the northern side of the circulation, some of it on the east, some of it on the west, but really it's the northern side feeling the wind and the rain right now. 50-mile-per-hour winds. We've been seeing that in the buoys. And NOAA's sail drone went in as well and measured that kind of wind. The hurricane hunters will go in and give us an exact wind once they get through there. There is an 80% chance that it makes it to that next level, either tropical storm or subtropical storm. The winds aren't a problem. You see that, right? It's all about just what kind of storm are we dealing with. There was an old boundary in this area, and so, you know, that would make it subtropical if it's still kind of tangled up with that boundary. So one flight en route. We have another flight scheduled for tonight with the hurricane hunters, and that will give us, again, continuous information on what's happening in the storm. Now, here's that visible satellite that I was telling you about. This really allows us to peer all the way down to the ocean and see what's happening. It's like taking a picture from the sky. And there's one little circulation right in here. See that? And then generally you see the circulation like that. So, you know, we have to find out exactly where the circulation is, the center, and that matters to some extent for the track as well, right? Where is it right now? You need to know that before you can say where is it going in 12 hours. But just that closer view really shows you what we're dealing with here. Maybe some multiple low centers right now, which are trying to congeal into one. Still showing us, though, from this vantage point, this is all the activity with rainfall and storms and wind, all on that northern side. There's just a lot of dry air on that southern and southeastern side of the storm. Now, there's actually not a ton of lightning. There's some, but it's really just a rain, and it's steady rain at that coming down for you in eastern North Carolina. You're seeing that around Morehead City and New Bern and Jacksonville, North Carolina. It's been raining pretty steadily now for the last couple of hours. We are seeing the winds onshore gusting 32 in Wilmington. Cape Hatteras gusting to 32 as well. But the buoy showing us the bigger numbers, as you would expect, over the open water, close to 49 miles per hour. Wave heights have come up a little bit more now in this last hour, up to about 10-foot waves, as reported up here in the northern part of the Outer Banks, up towards Corolla, right here down towards Wrightsville Beach, 10-foot waves. Not too far from Myrtle Beach, 9-foot waves, going all the way down into off the Georgia coast, 6-foot waves. So the surf is definitely up out here, and even more so out over the open water. Not a day for boaters, as you can guess. Now, tropical storm warnings are up in eastern North Carolina, eastern Virginia, parts of Maryland. We're going to be watching for these conditions, these tropical storm conditions, to extend inland and then move up and pivot up through the coast as we get through tonight, and continuing inland too. I mean, watch how this all expands. This is not just a coastal situation. We're going to see all the way into northern Virginia, into the D.C. area, into Baltimore, the risk for tropical storm gusts and rain, heavy at times, where we could see 3 to 5 inches of rain at some of the top numbers. Alex?
Yeah, that rain and the storm
of the coastline. Here, the wind is actually onshore out there in the Outer Banks, directly onshore where Mike is down there in Atlantic Beach. They're getting an offshore wind at the moment, and that's affecting the waves. It makes the wind direction means everything. Storm surge warning is up, again, related to the wind direction. Storm surge warnings and storm surge watches have been posted as well, and they do extend into some of the inlet areas or sound side areas and even bays. So we're expecting some concern there. All right, so now we're seeing some water rise. Duck, we're up to 1.2 feet above where you would expect to be. That's the most significant water rise I've seen just yet. I don't think that's causing any major issues at this time, but, you know, that's the trend that we're going to see, because the wind direction is not changing there for at least another, at least 12 hours, probably more like maybe the next 18 hours. Wind driving up some of the increased water levels here, down looking at the Chesapeake, down the southern side of it, 0.1, 0.3, maybe 0.5 feet above where you might expect to be right now. Now, with the surge that we're expecting at worst case scenario, and that would be probably high tide tomorrow, or we've got to keep an eye overnight high tide too, 3 to 5 feet or 2 to 4 feet above normally dry ground is what we are looking at that risk. We also have a rip current risk that's in place, and that's up and down most spots on the eastern seaboard. I'm not as much concerned up here off the Jersey Shore or off the Virginia Beach coast, for example. It's not a nice day. You're not going to necessarily want to go in the water there. Delaware, all the way down here through Florida, but including coastal areas of Georgia and even South Carolina. This is where I'm concerned. We have a high rip current risk. We've got a big storm circulating over the ocean, driving up that rip current risk. And this is where you're going to get some bouts of nicer weather. And you might think about doing some swimming. Water temperatures are still very warm. Know that rip current risk is high. Make sure you're at a guarded beach and follow their instructions. We've got the high surf advisories that are posted here for eastern North Carolina. The waves have been coming up. You saw that in the Nags Head camera, and we'll see it increase moving up the coast. Virginia Beach getting some bigger breakers. The coastal areas of Maryland and Delaware and Jersey get ready for some bigger breakers come tomorrow. Now, Alex, one other concern.
One of the most vulnerable stretches of roadways is Highway 12 in North Carolina's Outer Banks.
Meteorologist Chris Warren explains what happens when a tropical system brings impacts.
Many of these spots just have really taken it with multiple systems over the years, right? It doesn't take a whole lot. You don't have a powerful system to cause some of these issues.
You don't even need to have a tropical system.
Right.
The nor'easters and the coastal storms do that too. Now, this system that we're tracking, potential tropical cyclone 16, as it moves north, this is the center circulation path, cone of uncertainty. You see the Outer Banks. They're not even in that. You guys are definitely going to feel some of the worst of the impacts.
No doubt about it. So, this kind of gives you the general sense of kind of the timing and where that center may go. But as we are seeing, we will no doubt be talking about the impacts clearly.
Yes.
Eastern North Carolina up towards the Delmarva, too.
And it's going to be weakening when it's over land because it'll be over land and because some drier air will start working in. But we're still going to have that pressure gradient. So I think the wind is something that, regardless of where it tracks exactly, what kind of storm it is, subtropical, tropical, non-tropical, you're going to have the wind because we have a strong low pressure.
Absolutely. And you can see heading through the day on Saturday into Sunday, strong winds. Now, as we move through Sunday, those wind speeds, as we've talked about, because this thing will be generally over land, there will be a weakening. It's going to take some time, though. So still going to be breezy even as we get into Monday night out there.
The rainfall, too, could be heavy at times, even extending into Sunday and Monday. So this is the forecast for rain that could be heavy, potentially still causing some flooding concerns in northeastern Pennsylvania, northern New Jersey. I was just looking at the new GFS model run coming in, and it keeps some heavy rain around here, even northern Virginia into Monday morning.
There you go. So, this thing may not be in such a hurry to necessarily get out of here. Well, of course, it's going to be around for the weekend, which means football.
In rain and surge threats that the system can bring.
Meteorologist Mike Seidel takes us to Atlantic Beach, North Carolina, which is facing the changing conditions head on.
And then Mike will be back after that. So we've got continuous coverage for you out there. Now, I want to show you the projected track and the cone for potential tropical cyclone 16, making that landfall sometime tomorrow morning and then moving through North Carolina. As it moves over land, it will be losing intensity in terms of wind. You see that wind coming down. But in terms of rain, probably not a lot of change just yet. And we're going to have some general tropical storm force gusts for days. I mean, extending even into Sunday morning because we are just looking at a pretty large pressure gradient setting up between this low pressure and the high pressure that's out there to the east. So let's look at where we are right now. 50 mile per hour, that was estimated by using some of the buoys that are around here and a NOAA sail drone that went into this. But we also have the hurricane hunters, and I just checked. They're somewhere out in here. So they are en route somewhere in this zone. They are en route, and we'll get some data from them coming up soon. We are watching a lot of the heavy rain on that northern side of the circulation. In fact, all the activity has been on the northern side of the circulation. And that's where we're just seeing, the rain, the strongest of the winds. There's a few thunderstorms out there, not a lot. When you're looking for the center of circulation, the visible satellite can help us. You can see one little low maybe in there, maybe another one kind of circling right next to it, and then this broader circulation right like that. And so that's what the hurricane hunters do for us, is give us where exactly is that center fix, along with finding how strong it is with pressure and the winds and all. But that center is so important. Put that into the model so we know exactly where it's going as we get into the coming hours, Alex, because it is heading towards land.
It absolutely is.
We have a couple areas to watch this weekend, throughout the weekend. One today includes Rapid City in South Dakota, Scottsbluff in Nebraska, and actually extend over through the entire state of South Dakota into Minnesota and Iowa. This is one zone as we see our upper level lows start kicking out here and getting us some energy right into this zone at first. Now, there's some thunderstorms right now, but it's the storms later today that I'm most concerned about. We've also been watching existing activity all the way down through Kansas City and into Oklahoma. Oklahoma. I will tell you, Kansas City, we are finally in a break. The rain is moving through. It has been a tough morning to get anything done out there with that heavy rainfall. Rapid City, we have rain around this morning, but not severe weather at the moment. That will change today. There is going to be an increasing risk of storms with some large hail, 2-inch size hail or greater. Also a tornado threat. We've got a 3 on the Torcon for today in this area, eastern Wyoming, and then into northeastern or northwestern Nebraska, a possibility there. Storms will be developing later today. I mean, we have rain right now, but it's the thunderstorms that we're worried about. This is 5 o'clock. Supercells like this could be a problem. Also watching for storms continuing even after dark across this area. Look at these thunderstorms now in Wyoming, moving into South Dakota and Nebraska. That becomes our overnight cluster of storms. That could be a big rainmaker, and that's another problem that we see with all this. I'll show you that in a second. We also have thunderstorm chances tomorrow as we see everything kind of shift a little bit further to the east, although not that quickly, as we're kind of stuck with this pattern all weekend. So from Minnesota all the way down to Oklahoma, we'll see a line of thunderstorms likely here. And along that, there'll be all the risks, all the hazards, the chance of storms with hail, damaging winds, and that isolated tornado risk. Keep an eye on some of these individual cells for that kind of concern. And then the line of storms continuing. This is 9 o'clock. And look at Minneapolis, Des Moines, probably Kansas City, down to Tulsa. So many cities will be dealing with thunderstorms and possible severe weather. And Tulsa, we may end up with a cluster of storms that develops here through the overnight, bringing heavy rain, a threat of severe that lingers, and then the threat for flash flooding. Some heavy rain concerns, and we're going to be watching that add up over the next coming days. Now, here we go with rainfall out here, 3 to 5 inches. Again, Surf City, it's possible we get 6 here, but overall, it's probably 3 to 5 widespread is what we will see. We're going to see this rainfall start later today. It's already started, actually, in parts of eastern North Carolina, but moving up into Virginia later today and then continue into tomorrow. We're going to see places like Richmond, the James River. We've got concerns for both rainfall flooding coming down and even some river flooding there into Virginia. We also have coastal concerns with coastal flood warnings. We have that in places like Dover, Delaware, Rehoboth Beach. We're talking about up into the Delaware Bay, also into the Chesapeake. And you'll notice that it's the western side here of the Chesapeake, and it's mainly the western side of Delaware Bay. That's where we have the problems. You get a sense of how this wind direction is going to be, just like that, coming in from the east or northeast, and that's going to drive that coastal concern, whether you're on the Atlantic Ocean coast or the Chesapeake Bay coast or the Delaware Bay coast as well. Now, the rainfall, combined with all these other things we're watching, could cause some flooding through Saturday morning, watching especially eastern North Carolina with that heavy rainfall. Then Saturday into Sunday, we see that risk move up the coast a little bit more into southeastern Pennsylvania, into Jersey. We could have heavy rain there. But then Sunday into Monday, we're still watching rain and the circulation from whatever this happens to be, whether it's, right now it's a potential tropical cyclone. It could become a tropical cyclone or a subtropical cyclone. It'll have weakened by Monday, but it'll still be hanging out, bringing us rain concerns right across this area. And so it looks like this in the forecast radar, rain coming up today through eastern North Carolina, really spreading. Look how widespread all of this is. It's a very large system in terms of wingspan, a lot of it on the northern and northeastern side right now, and that's the side that will be moving in. So spreading out by Saturday evening all throughout the state of Pennsylvania, practically to Pittsburgh, and we'll see that rain spreading up to the Capital District in New York, like Albany, into New Hampshire. This is getting into your Sunday. We've got rain continuing up here, and again, some bouts of that could be heavy at times with some bigger rainfall rates, and that always leads to flood concerns. Speaking of flood concerns, we worry about the surge, of course, for some of those coastal impacts.
Yeah, we don't have to have a Category 5 hurricane to lead to big surge issues here, so no doubt about it. We will track that here over the next few days.